Houston, we have a problem.
I have a really bad feeling about this.
A boy's best friend is his mother.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Silent Green is people!
Yo, Adrian!
Let's put a smile on that face.
I gotta warn you, Clark. They don't play the same games here as they do at them regular casinos.
Royale, too.
Welcome to Casino Royale with Cheese. This is episode number 4. This is the show where we discuss movies that were number 1 at the box office exactly 20 years ago. With me today, I have my buddy, who I'm sure needs his pain healed after watching this movie, Mike.
What's up, bro?
What's going on? My name is Shane, once again. And this week we watched Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, did we not?
Unfortunately so.
So we talked last week when we were watching Top Gun about how you didn't think that you'd seen this one after watching it. Did that jar anything loose, or are you pretty sure that never happened?
I either 100% did not ever watch this movie, or 100% mentally blocked it out.
I'm sure a lot of people wish they could, and you might try to after this is over, like this recording, just purge it from your head. So I'm gonna try to remain with a little bit of objectivity. I was living in Northern California back in 1989 when I saw this movie, and so I watched it at a drive-in theater. It was like the first movie I ever remember seeing at any sort of like public atmosphere, you know. And so that was my experience. I really enjoyed it. And if we ever talk about Star Trek 6, I've got a really interesting story about that one too. But
I'll have a really interesting story about how we can't be friends again if we have to watch Star Trek 6.
6 is oftentimes considered like way better than this movie, just letting you know. But
I mean, it would have to be. There's only one direction it could go.
Right. And you're not the only person that felt that way. In fact, the producers at Paramount were thinking that this movie was going to pull in like $200 million worldwide at the box office. Just to go into a little bit of numbers here, the budget for this movie was $27.8 million. It wound up, so there were some heavy hitters that came out the summer of 1989. I went through last night and was just writing down like a list of some of the movies that were number 1 at the box office that year. So we had. Was
this one ever number 1?
Yeah, it was for 1 week. Okay. It was, I believe, June the 11th of 1989. But that summer we also had Batman, we had Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Back to the Future 2, Ghostbusters 2. Like, this movie really didn't.
Damn, yeah, the competition was steep.
Some really heavy hitters, yeah. And so, like, even though, you know, a lot of people will argue with you about the quality of Ghostbusters 2, it still made a lot of money at the box office, you know. So, but, yeah. Actually, this was directed by William Shatner, and he's, since he came out with this movie, gone on record and said that this movie was a, quote, failed but glorious attempt. Even he will admit that it's probably not very good, but, you know, it is what it is. Before we really dig into this thing, did you have any, like, first impressions or anything to lead into it at all, Mike, or?
No. I did not know what to expect. I didn't even know what captain I was going to see, to be honest.
Oh, like, okay. Could have been Picard or yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the movie, so I was kind of just going into it completely open-minded. I even told myself before I started watching it, like, don't judge this thing just yet. Like, give it a shot. You know, see what you think of it. I know how big of a fan you are of Star Trek, and I didn't just want to shit all over you the whole time we talked today.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid that.
Well, it's kind of funny, because this is, a lot of people have said that this is like a pretty good representation of the original show, like, be it good or bad, like the show could be really good, the old original series, or it could just be really cheesy and bad special effects and the whole thing, and this is like a pretty fair representation of the highs and lows of the original show, so if that's what Kirk or Shatner was trying to encapsulate, yeah, he did it.
It definitely captured that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There is some stuff that I'm probably gonna throw in later that is kind of plot holy, but I'll get to it when we get to it. You want to dig into this thing, Mike?
Let's get it.
All right, go ahead and set the scene for us here.
So we open up on the planet of galactic peace, which is a galactic piece of shit. It's just a big rock.
Man, the planet Nimbus 3 in the neutral zone, and from what I could tell, this seems to be some sort of like public relations stunt set up by like the Federation and the Romulans and the Klingons, who none of them get along with each other. But basically some hippies got together in a room and said that there should be this thing where these 3 different factions try to talk shit out, and they never discuss anything noteworthy either, but it's whatever.
No, they don't. It doesn't look like they get much accomplished of anything.
Right, they sit in the back of a bar and drink, it sounds like, so. But anyway, we see this old dude who looks like he's like fresh off the set of like Mad Max or something. Like this bald dude, got maybe 4 teeth rattling around in his head, and he's digging around in this freaking desert full of holes, and obviously he's not finding anything out there. And freaking all of a sudden
what's
we
up
see
with this grill?
Motion. That's what I'm saying, man. It was a mess, dude. Like, I have these Bubba teeth, like these fake teeth I put in, and they look better than his.
I'm pretty sure they were attempting to make it look like all of his teeth were molars.
They looked wider to me than, like, your front teeth are not as wide as your back teeth, Like, this dude didn't have any canines or anything, dude.
No, he had 3 molars.
Yeah. I don't know
at
how
the
you
front
eat
of his
like
grill.
that. Yeah, this dude's looking rough though. He's bald. Obviously pretty slow from what I could tell. He never seemed to be any kind of brain trust or anything. But yeah, we see this horse roll up, which I find hilarious because they have horses on this planet. Like,
no, they don't.
Yeah, that one had a horn.
Yeah, it's a fucking unicorn.
Which is funny. I can see Shatner sitting back, and he's like, he's like, oh, so there's horses on this planet. He's like, no, that has a horn. That's a space horse, like.
Yeah, they call those unicorns.
Right. And once again, it was okay to kind of get by with that in the original series. There was an episode where they had like this dog that they were carrying around they found on a planet, and had like a horn and these antennas sticking out. But this is a movie, dude. You gotta do better than that.
Did Homeboy's gun shoot rocks?
Yeah, so I guess that's the thing is later on in the movie they talk about how these guys will like fashion weapons themselves since there's no weapons allowed on this planet. And so what he was trying to do is load rocks into this weapon, which would never work, by the way, because rocks are all sorts of different sizes and shapes. And
I just saw rocks fall over the ground. I was like, I think he was trying to put that in the gun.
Mm-hmm. He was, yeah. Especially since a gun or a rifle is like a really pressurized system. Stuffing a rock in there, unless there's some kind of space gun, probably not going to work that well, but it's whatever. So we get this dude, he rolls in on this horse, the bald dude goes through, he's trying to load up this gun, and so then the dude on the horse finally rolls up, and it's this bearded dude, and he's like, I thought guns were forbidden on this planet, and he's like, besides, I can't believe you try to kill me for some holes, and the guy's like, well, it's all I have, basically, and so anyway, he goes through and basically hypnotizes this fella, and he tells him that he has some sort of hidden pain that he needs to have taken away. Essentially, like, the guy all of a sudden decides that he's going to join forces with this dude, who we later find... It's funny you say that, because the original idea, from my understanding with William Shatner, was that character was inspired by like these televangelists that were all over the TV back in the 80s and stuff. And so the whole idea of like him providing you instant salvation, and any bad decisions you made before this are instantly forgiven, and you're, you know, all that stuff. And so I think that's what Shatner was getting at.
Not to mention he dressed like and looked a lot like the stereotypical Christian Jesus.
He did have some robes on him. I could definitely, maybe even some Catholic type stuff going on with the robes even. But, you know, it's funny too. I don't think so. It's funny too, because apparently, according to Shatner, they were originally trying to get Sean Connery to play this role. Which I find hilarious.
I bet they were.
I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, like, would Sean Connery ever do this? And then I'm like, well, he was in Zardoz and like Highlander 2, so he's been in some real dog shit movies in his own right. But man, I just cannot see Connery being in this movie, and I don't even know if it would have affected the quality of it in a positive light. Really, it wouldn't have made much difference.
It would have made it a little better,
just because it's Connery. But the overall quality of the movie wouldn't have improved.
No, it still would have sucked a big fatty.
Yeah, that's like the special effects, you know, because Shatner talks about like all this extra stuff he wanted to do, but there was no budget there, and they really didn't know how to do this visual effects. And I'm like, I don't know if it would have made it any better or not, dude. You know? But anyway, this fella Sybok reveals that he's on a quest. He's trying to seek out what all men have sought, and this bald dude's gonna join him. And he says that he needs a starship, and he's like, but there's no starships on Nimbus 3s. What the bald dude tells him, and he's like, oh, I got my ways. And he flips down his hood, and you see he's got Vulcan ears, and then starts laughing
uncontrollably.
Yeah, it's kind of poignant, because you never see Vulcans laugh all that much, you know, so that's kind of different. But once again, it depends on your knowledge of this. Yeah.
No,
whether or not you're a fan is going to be hinged upon, you know, whether or not that's effective. So,
right.
Anyway, then we go to the opening titles. And I got to say, so right off the top here, say whatever you want about this movie, but the score for it is phenomenal, dude. Like the music in it, fantastic stuff. I really dig it. It was Jerry Goldsmith. He's done a bunch of Star Trek crap. And this is, in my opinion, is the best of, you know. But
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's good. Anyway, what happens after that, Mike?
They're in Yosemite Park back on Earth, and there's some dude climbing on the rocks.
That ain't Shatner, but yeah, some dude.
And they show him climbing rocks for quite a while.
They do. Throughout the whole credits. It goes on for like...
super sheer face of rock. Like incredible hand holds and toe holds.
Yeah.
There's even a portion on the rock where he's using just his arms and his legs are like hanging off as he's traversing on this overhang.
Right.
Whoever that guy was, he's a beast.
Yeah, but it wasn't William Shatner though. I promise you that.
I didn't know who it was supposed to be until they cut to him. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That's supposed to be 60-year-old William Shatner.
Frumpy, girdle wearing, you know, yeah. But anyway, so then we cut to Dr. McCoy, or Bones, who's on the ground, watching him with binoculars, basically saying that him free climbing that rock is really stupid, because it's a pretty good way to die if you're not careful. And then we see Spock, who goes up with these anti-gravity boots and starts pestering Kirk, and basically tells him that he shouldn't be climbing the rock, and then distracts him to a point where he falls off the mountain, you know. And
dude, and then my favorite is when Spock throws his arms up first.
The Superman,
then he folds over to descend into Superman pose, down to grab Captain Kirk, and then he grabs Kirk's foot just before he hits the ground, and is able to then flip himself back over and put William Shatner safely on the ground. What a load of horseshit.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And I will say, too, the visual effect of Shatner actually, you know, notionally falling down this mountain is pretty awful visually. The visual effects were bad. It's the longest fall ever, you know. Like
Spock looks terrible, by the way. He is not holding up well at this point.
No. He actually, I think, looks comparable to how he did in the '09 movie, except that was, 20 years later. So.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and we also have, like, the thing, like, the Gwen Stacy thing, where, like, if somebody's falling that quickly, if you grab them and jerk them that quickly to, like, stop them from falling, that dude's gonna be dead,
Nope. Nope. They got anti-gravity boots, Shane.
Right. Kirk's a superhero in this,
No,
so...
Spock is.
Yeah, he literally is Superman. Anyway, we cut back to Paradise City, where it's the main like capital of this Nimbus 3 planet, and there's this woman that's riding up once again on a stupid horse, which that's not the last horse thing we'll see before this is out. But anyway, she's riding up. She goes into this bar, and there's like these guys that are playing pool. And there's some kind of commercial going on in the background on this TV.
Let me stop you. Really quick. All right,
go ahead.
This is their attempt to rip off the cantina scene from Star Wars.
I agree.
Clearly, not only do they rip off Star Wars, but they rip off Total Recall too, because they got a female that has 3 boobs. Like, let's just take everything from our favorite movies and jam it into this bar scene.
Right. To be fair, I think Total Recall came out after this, but.
Damn it! Now I gotta do research.
Right? I could just imagine though, like the producers, like William Shatner, going up. Yeah, we need 3 tits for this cat chick, and they're like, you need what?
Yeah, and then the bartender like hits her tail, and she like because she's on the bar dancing, and then the cat's like, Meow.
Yeah,
but it's a woman.
No, these boobs are integral to the plot. We've got to have them,
Golly. Hey, I got a question. Did he produce, write, and direct this film?
I think somebody did the script work for it. But yeah, he wrote the story. I don't know that he had a hand in producing it. I think that was all Harv Bennett, but I know he directed it. So it pretty much was his baby, though, at the end of the day. Which is kind of funny, because the only reason that he got that deal in the first place was that he wrote, apparently in his contract, that he was going to get whatever perks Leonard Nimoy got. And since Nimoy got to direct 4, he got to direct 5. Whereas 1 was good and 1 was not. But,
4 was pretty good.
Yeah, the whales. There be whales here.
Yeah, so we meet the 3 people that are like the consullaries.
Yeah, the chick goes to the back of the bar, and there's these 2 other guys back there, yeah. And she introduces herself as Caitlin Dar. She's a Romulan. There's a old
and
Klingon
a terrible
dude.
Actress.
Oh, God. I can accidentally read lines better than that, dude.
She was hard to watch.
Oh, yeah. It was bad. Bad.
She was a very beautiful woman.
Yeah.
But her acting, garbage.
Oh, yeah. We had the old Klingon dude. He's this guy, General Cord. And then we had St. John Talbot, which was the man I was telling you about that was in Titanic. He was the manservant.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that they gave him anything to do in this movie. Yeah. They didn't give him anything to do in here. They got him and they were like, whatever. But anyway, so at that point we cut to this siren that's going off because this guy that had previously been talking to Baldy and healed his pain now has amassed like this army, and they're now storming this Paradise City. And basically
they break in 2 seconds.
Yeah, there's no resistance. I guess that's the downside of having a planet with no weapons, but
And the gate that's like set up at the front gate, they literally just like push on it and it falls over.
Just push it over, yeah. And so he takes the 3 guys hostage that are in the bar, that are like the representatives from Romulan and Earth and the Klingon homeworld. And then we cut to the Enterprise, and that thing's looking rough.
It's a piece of crap.
It is a piece of shit, dude.
Like, nothing works in it.
The doors won't open.
Scotty's accent, like, as he's working on this, is the most Scottish of Scottish accents I've ever heard. Like, I remember hearing Scotty talk in, like, the original Star Trek series, watching it with my parents and stuff like that, and in the previous movies, but for some reason he decided to kick up that Scottish Rogue even a little bit higher for this movie.
I mean, it's the only acting gig he's getting, so he might as well go balls to the wall, I guess. You know?
Going hard in the paint, yeah.
That's it, yep. Anyway, I guess Uhura and Scotty are seeing each other now, which I find odd. But
Aurora?
Uhura, yeah.
Yeah, what's that? When did that happen? I thought that was like a Kirk and a Horde thing.
Well, so they kissed one time. Kirk was under like mind control in the original series, and then you got the JJ movies where
The
Spock
first
and her,
biracial kiss on television.
Yeah, yep. And then in the new movies, Uhura and Spock are kind of getting it on, but Scotty and her have never before ever shown any interest in each other, and it's never brought up again in any other Star Trek stuff, you know, which I find hilarious because Scotty's actually in 2 more movies after this one, and he's in an episode of The Next Generation. Never mentions Uhura once, you know, but they get a red alert, and as it turns out, like they're saying that they need to call everybody up from shore leave, which is basically, I assume they got shore leave after saving the Earth in Star Trek 4. And then we cut to Chekhov and Sulu. These morons. They fumble around on Earth, and they get lost. And then they tell Uhura they're like stuck in a blizzard, which she can see. Like, she's got the Weather Channel pulled up on her stupid thing, you know. And she's like, it's not blizzarding down there at all, you know. And they're like, can you just beam us up and like keep this under wraps? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Pointless.
By the way, we see Sulu, and I'm pumped. I'm a big fan of George Takei.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because of his acting chops, but he became a regular on Howard Stern.
Oh, okay.
And you get to hear his like sense of humor, and like you learn a lot about him too. You know, he's since had a movie released about his family being imprisoned in a World War in encampment. What is that? What do they call those?
Those
prison encampments, basically.
Internment camp. Yeah.
Yeah, internment camp. Thank you. Yeah. So you hear about like how his family was like locked up during World War II in America.
Right.
You know, just in case they might be double agents or secret spies, and
the FDR thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know he's a big face and name and voice for the LGBTQ. I apologize if I got those initials wrong. Community.
They're adding a lot of new consonants to that all the time.
Yeah,
but yeah.
But he's a big representative of that, and like when I listen to him on Howard Stern, like he just sounds like a really great guy. So seeing him now on television versus when I was a child and seeing him on television, I thought he was just like, this sounds bad, but back when I was a kid, I just thought he was an Asian guy with a crazy deep voice.
He does have a deep voice.
And a really, unmistakable voice. But, you know, after getting to know him, like, through the Howard Stern show and, like, social media and stuff like that, man, he's great. I was happy to see him on the movie. That was probably one of the highlights for me.
Well, it's funny because I think he's more prominent now than he ever was back when he was, like, doing a ton of acting, just because he's kind of a pop culture staple nowadays. But, you know, it's whatever, man. So then we cut to, I guess, Spock and Bones and Kirk are all sitting down to eat some of Bones' family bean recipe that he's made on their little camp out. And so Kirk makes a fart joke.
He says whiskey and beans can be an explosive mixture.
Yeah, an explosive combination, or something like
combination,
that.
Yeah.
And
the secret ingredient to the beans is whiskey.
Right.
Gave the secret away.
Tennessee whiskey, yeah. And so anyway, Bones gets pissed off at Kirk because he's like, you should have died up there, fucking around on that mountain. It was only by, pure chance that you're not dead right now. And Kirk was like, I knew I wasn't gonna die. And he's like, well, how'd you figure that out? And he's like, I've always known I'd die alone. And that's one thing that I like about because I don't know if there's a whole lot of symbolism there, but it's kind of poignant, that line,
Well, he talks about how he had them there.
Right.
And he's always known he's gonna die. So basically, what he's saying is like, as long as he's got his boys with him, like he knows he's good.
Right. And so then Spock decides he wants to roast a marshmallow, which he calls a marshmelon, which I guess is a space marshmallow.
Where did he get it from, by the way? Like, he only had one.
Yeah.
He pulled it out of like a small tube or something.
So that's kind of what I was wondering is, I can only assume that's some kind of like a replicating device that he had, but it's not big enough to make anything else but these stupid marshmallows. You can't make a turkey come out of that stupid thing, you know? So like, it's pointless.
Look, they're at Yosemite Park, like in America. They can get some marshmallows.
Yeah.
We're on Earth, folks.
There's 7-Eleven around somewhere, you know? And this is kind of funny too that I thought about. So check this out, Mike. So everybody is having fun and they're on vacation and all this crap, right? But then whenever...
Well, it looks like the only person having fun is Kirk.
Right. Everybody else is kind of pissed off at his, you know, he's pissing them off at their expense, you know. But the funny thing about it is, though, is that you learn in Star Trek that in the future there's no money, right? That people basically, like, aspire to do better and to explore and create things of their own volition. So if you that badly want to get off of work, why don't you just tell them to piss off, you know? Like, all right, I'm out. There's no money in the future. I don't have to worry about my bills. Like, I'm done doing this. I'll see you guys when I get this out of my system.
They're starship officers.
So what? They're not getting paid. They're not getting fired, you know? Like, they don't have to go look for another job.
They are admirable men who love their profession of choice, Shane. That's where they get all their reward in life, okay?
But if that's your reward, then why would you want a vacation? Why don't you go up to the ship and get more reward?
Kirk just uses it as an excuse because he wanted to go climb a rock.
I think so. I just find it funny, though, that if you don't have to worry about money, then you could just quit your job and take an infinite vacation, you know? It's whatever, man. So, anyway, they decide that they're going to have a sing-along. And they start singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat in a round, except Spock doesn't get it. Here we go. What you guys say about that, Mike?
It's just a fucking terrible scene, man. 3 old dudes sitting around talking about having a sing-along, and they pick Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
Now, you've been camping many times.
Don't even explain the concept.
Right.
What?
You've been camping many times. Have you ever sang Row, Row, Row Your Boat in your adult life around a campfire?
I never sang it in my childhood.
Yeah? That's pretty funny.
And like, they want Spock to, like, join in. But
Spock's trying to understand the words. Yeah.
They didn't even explain to him. They're like, we're going to give you a sign and then you go. Like, he had no idea, like, that it's this overlapping thing.
Right, the round, basically, yeah.
He's just thinking of the deep meaning of the words, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
That's what McCoy's like. Basically, you just sing it because it rhymes. It doesn't have to have any kind of meaning, you know? And so anyway, they cut to where the guys are going to settle in for the night. And basically, I watched this a while back with the director's commentary on. And actually, like, Shatner went on for, like, I want to say like 7 minutes about this stupid owl that they got to, like, be on the set that day at night in Yosemite Park.
Notice it.
Yeah, and I was like, that's all you gotta say about your movie? Like, this is a stupid owl? Whatever, man. We cut to after that. There's a Klingon bird of prey that shows up, and it basically is piloted by this dude, Captain Claw, which is ridiculous. I'm having, like, Inspector Gadget, like, flashbacks or something, you know, but whatever, man. And
I like how you're, like, I like how you just keep throwing out their names. Like, we know what their names are in the movie. They don't explain, like you said, Sybok or Sybok. You said his name. We don't find out his name until, like, way later.
Oh, yeah, they haven't said his name yet at this point
at all. You just said Captain Claw right now. And
I don't think they say his name.
a matter of fact, we don't know what the fuck is going on in this scene because they're speaking in Klingon. They're not giving me a goddamn subtitle or nothing. They're just going on and on, bantering back and forth.
I'm pretty sure that might have been the recording that I gave you, that it didn't have a subtitle, because it is subtitled in the movie. I didn't realize that it was not subtitled in that.
Dude, okay, so now you get to listen to it from a guy who didn't have subtitles. I have no idea at any one of these Klingon scenes in the movie what the fuck is going on. No idea.
That's
so,
good.
Thanks, Shane.
You're welcome, bro. Would you really want her to pay to watch this on Amazon? Come on.
Maybe I would at least know what the hell they were saying.
Yeah.
I literally was like, I can't believe this whole scene is in Klingon, and they're not telling me what it is, and now I know you sabotaged me.
Yeah, I did. Accidentally, but yeah, I set you up for failure. No, so what happens in the scene is basically they get the target on this satellite. It's the Pioneer 10, and they blow it up. And this guy basically indicates, the captain of the Klingon ship indicates that he's bored with shooting at space debris. And that's essentially all that the scene adds to it. There's nothing else going on in that scene.
Makes way more sense than what I saw, which was
That
just
is
a
true.
dude and a chick yelling back and forth at each other, and he just brought up his Atari targeting system and shot out an old space satellite.
Yeah. Which I think is funny because when they shoot it, you actually hear the satellite makes like a screaming sound. It's like, bah! What the hell is going on, man? So anyway, we find out later, they cut back to where Kirk and Spock and Bones were asleep. And there's a shuttle that's landing, and you could tell that they didn't have a budget for it. And so all they've done basically is strung up these like spotlights and like had them descend like downwards so that it looked like something was landing. And she tells him that there's been a red alert, and he's like, why didn't you just be my communicator? She's like, oh, you left it behind. And he's like, oh, I wonder why I did that. Which, once again, if you don't want to be on your ship, just quit. You don't have to job hunt, you know? But anyway, they all hop in the shuttle, and they're headed back to the Enterprise. And there's this really bad composite shot of the shuttle, like, flying up from the Earth's surface, basically. And so then we get to see the Enterprise spotlighted up against the moon, which is pretty cool, even though it was once again a bad special effect. But anyway,
We can just go ahead and cover it by saying there's no good special effects in this movie.
I think that there was one where they first introduced the Enterprise, but that's because it was a reused shot from Star Trek 4. So, but yeah. Figure that out. Industrial Light and Magic versus whoever they got to do this thing. They get off the shuttle and they hop in the turbo lift, and Kirk says, I could use a shower, and Spock's like, yeah, you could. Which I find funny.
Thanks, Spock.
Right? Stinky old captain. They then get a message from like the Admiral, who he just calls Bob, and he essentially tells them that there's this hostage situation on Nimbus 3 and they need the Enterprise to go out. And Kirk's like, dude, this ship is a piece of shit, dude. And he's like, well, you know, we got other ships, but you're the only captain that has your experience. What did you think about that, Mike?
William Shatner was stroking his own ego a little bit in that scene.
I'd have to agree. But he even says straight up, we have other ships, so why don't you just take Kirk's fucking ass off of the Enterprise and put him in a ship that works? That's so dumb.
Apparently, in this galaxy, like, your crew has to stay together no matter what.
I guess so.
And on your assigned ship.
It's never been like that. In fact, in the next movie, Sulu gets his own ship that he's the captain of. But I digress. It's ridiculous. So then they decide they're going to take off, and Bones warns him. He's like, you're bound to run into the Klingons. And he's like, I don't care. And so, anyway, they receive message, the Klingons receive a message from the Klingon High Command or whatever, that the Enterprise is going in to take care of this hostage situation. And Captain Claw is excited about that because he considers Kirk to be a really good adversary, so he's going to go try to intercept him on the way, basically. And you probably didn't know any of that because there were no
I
subtitles.
had no fucking clue.
But anyway, doesn't matter. So what happens after that, Mike?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, we find out that the dude, Sybok, he explains that he has a galactic army of light.
I love that name. It's so dumb. Oh, man.
And then Spock, so they get the Enterprise sees this from Sybok on like a teleconference.
Right. Yeah, it's
And,
a hostage tape.
Yeah, so they get the hostage tape. There you go. And he explains it's the Galactic Army of Light, and then Spock's like, "Oh, I know that dude."
Yep. And Kirk even asked him, he said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." He's like, "Perhaps I have, Captain." And you find out later that basically there is a dude named Sybok, which is where we finally learn this guy's name, that was apparently like in school with Spock when he was back on Vulcan, and he was really smart, but he felt like the only way that Vulcans could reach their full potential was to embrace emotion, which is kind of a no-go amongst Vulcans.
But apparently it used to be the way that they do things.
Right. Yeah, back in... So I'm going to nerd out for just a second here. There was a time when, like, the Vulcans apparently were, like, super emotional and super passionate and all this other stuff, and they would, you know, act out aggressively and be full of anger and all this other stuff. And then it almost, like, destroyed their civilization until, like, they had this leader that came about and instructed them on how they could purge emotion, and that's the only way that their race would survive. But Sybok's wanting to dabble back into this whole thing again, you know.
Weren't you so surprised to find out that the two Vulcans knew each other?
I mean, I saw this back in '89, man. So, I would say not really, but you know, it is
Spock, who's portrayed as the most intelligent person in the galaxy, pretty much.
Right.
And there's another Vulcan in the movie. Like, pretty good odds they know each other.
Right. Well, I don't think you ever really see that many Vulcans that Spock doesn't know. You know.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Of course he knew him.
Right.
As soon as you see that pointy ear in the very first scene, you go, "Oh, Spock knows that guy."
Yeah, that's his boy. They're you know, have something to do with each other.
Yeah.
So the Enterprise arrives at Nimbus 3, and their transporters still aren't working because the ship's a piece of shit. And they realize that the Klingons are actually starting to approach rapidly. And they decide that they don't have time to wait for the transporters to get fixed. Instead, they're going to go down in a shuttle. And meanwhile, we have Chekhov pretending to be the captain, and he actually makes contact with Sybok and says, "I'm Captain Chekhov. You guys need to surrender what you're doing." Meanwhile, they got this team of guys that's going in to kind of undermine that whole thing, catch them off guard. Essentially. Long story short. So they sneak up on this group of guys that are there with these dumb horses. And
Unicorns.
Oh, the unicorns, yeah. I'm sorry. Unicorns are real in this universe. There's no horses on the planet. Then they decide that that's going to be the fastest way to roll into town is going to be with these unicorns. And so the only way that they can think of to distract him is to get Uhura to do this naked fan dance for him. Which is...
By the way, Uhura still had it going on.
I used to work with this guy back in the days, like, yeah, Uhura, she's so old. I don't know how old she was when they filmed this, but I don't think she looked that bad, you know.
Well, we only really see her legs, but they're in great shape.
Right. Yeah, she's got a couple of nice little stems on her. Yeah. I would be okay with that. But
she was positioned perfectly in front of the moon.
Yeah.
They don't explain to us how there's like a band of music playing for her to dance to either.
No, they don't. She's just singing.
I mean, where was it Kirk, like Spock and Bones back there like jamming out?
Yeah, they brought the congos with them and stuff.
Yeah.
Back there getting it. That's funny.
And she's just singing her seductor song.
Yeah, the siren song.
Isn't this a callback? Like, didn't she do this in another movie or another show or something?
She sang in the original show.
She never did a dance in the original
She never,
series?
that I know of. No, in the original
okay.
series, no. That was the 60s, man. You couldn't dance naked on TV. You could barely wear a burlap sack on TV and get by with it.
Well, they don't show anything.
No, they don't. But I think there might have even been like a little bit of like to do back in the day about like Jeannie's midriff being exposed, and I Dream of Jeannie, you know? Like,
Yeah, you're right, there was.
yeah. So that would have been an absolute no-go. But anyway, they make it to the city, and they fool the guys that are like the guards of the city, which they're guarding the city way better than any of the actual guards of the city did, but it's whatever. And so Spock's trying to scan for where these hostages are being held, and Kirk's bothering him about it. He's like, hey, have you picked up on where these hostages are at? He's like, hold your horse, Captain. That's such an awful line. It made me want to stab myself in the face, man.
Oh, that's what got you in this movie?
It's pretty bad.
This line?
There's one other spot that's cringeworthy to watch, but we get to it.
Okay. All right, I'm glad we found the spots that you didn't think held up very good.
Which parts did you not think held up very well, Mike?
We'll get there.
I can't wait. I so can't wait.
Maybe watch this fucking movie, man.
I've been so excited to see what your opinion of it is. Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
So anyway, they discover that it's actually the Enterprise guys that just stormed the city, and not any of Sybok's soldiers, I guess. And so anyway, there's this bad fake fight scene that takes place, and
well, there's a firefight.
Yeah, there is.
And then Kirk and some dude like hug each other and spin in circles.
Yeah, and you can tell that he's like fake, not even touching him when he like punches guys and stuff like that. It's really bad. Oh no, it's the three-titted cat lady that jumps on his back.
No, but he was
bar.
wrestling with some guy outside before he got inside the bar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's the guy that he was fake punching, and it looked awful.
And then he gets in the bar, and like you said, the three-titted cat lady. I think that's her official name in the credits, by the way.
I hope it is.
She jumps on Kirk and like mauls the shit out of him, and does not leave a single scratch or mark on him.
Right.
Then he Hulk tosses her over his head into looks like a fish tank, and she dies immediately.
Yeah, it's a water pool table.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, they were playing pool on it earlier, and now they were into it. Yeah, she's done. Because that would kill you.
Cats hate water, dude. She would have jumped right out of that thing.
Yeah, well, she's a cat lady. I could just see Kirk being like, all right, and then the woman with 3 breasts tries to wrestle me, and all this.
And I'm going to hurl her off of my back over my head.
Right, yeah. They're like, Shatner, go home, dude. We'll just call Nimoy back. It's okay. So anyway, we get to see Spock nerve pinch a horse, which is really, really bad, too. And then after Kirk disposes of the 3-breasted woman, the hostages show up, and he's like, oh, thank God you guys are okay. And then they pull guns on Kirk, and you find out that they've actually joined up with Sybok now. And they had no intention of being rescued. He was just trying to get him to the planet. And then Sybok recognizes Spock. And he's like, after all these years, is there anything you want to say to me? Which I thought this is a great line. He said, you're under arrest for 17 violations of Neutral Zone Treaty.
It's pretty good.
That's a pretty great line. And of course, Sybok laughs hysterically at that too. And rightfully so, because it's pretty funny. And he asks Spock to join him, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And what's up?
No, I agreed with you. Yeah, I mean,
oh, yeah.
that 17 violations. It's a little shiny glitter of a moment in the movie for me. It was pretty good.
Right. So he says that he just needs a starship because he's on this mission, and he's like, Kirk says, you brought us here just so you could steal my ship, and he's like, who the fuck are you? And he's like, I'm Captain of the Enterprise, and he's like, oh, I got what you did. And so anyway, the Klingons arrive. and they have their shields are up, and they wind up cloaking. They're doing like a silent approach type deal, and so then we get to see Kirk and Sybok and a couple of his guys and like Sulu and the rest of the Enterprise guys in the shuttle, but they can't land the shuttle while the shields are up because the Enterprise has its shields up so that they won't get blown out of the sky in case the Klingons attack.
But why did Kirk, like, in no time been like, oh, you guys want to go up to the Enterprise and take over my ship? All right, I'll take you up there.
I don't know.
There was like no resistance.
I want to say there might be a missing scene or something in there, because, dude, they took over the Enterprise quick, bro. You know, considering there were like 8 dudes that had guns that shot rocks, like, they gave up the Enterprise really freaking quickly, I gotta say. I have no idea why Kirk just turned it over.
Dude, set tasers to kill and get on with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I actually like this scene coming up though, when they have to like fly the shuttle in manually into the hangar bay, because they have to like lower the shields for a very short period of time so that the Klingons won't fire on them. And so instead of like the Enterprise bringing the shuttle in, they're just gonna like go full speed and try to get this thing in the shuttle bay, which is pretty cool. I like that part.
How hard could that be?
I mean, I don't know.
They make it sound like it's an impossible task and that Sulu's going to do it, who has never tried it before.
Well, that's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, you have to think there's all sorts of computers to correct for stuff like that, you know, even, I don't know.
In the previous scene where we saw the shuttle docking after they came back from shore leave, as they're pulling into the docking bay, Uhura says to Scotty, you have it now, and Scotty says, you're doing just fine. Yeah,
so she's flying it herself into the shuttle bay.
Right, I think and now Sulu's getting ready to do this big attempt. Now, here's my question. Was it really set up to... Because, let me just jump to the next little spot here. So Sulu tries to fly this thing in, and he crashes into the Enterprise. He, like, hits the skids on the entry door and crashes. Yeah. The best kind of crash you can have. He had it. Yeah. And, like, was that the point? Or did that really just happen?
No, I think that was a side effect of the maneuver that they pulled off, and I think the idea was that Sulu was going at a really fast speed so that he could dock as quickly as possible, and I think that was the risky part of the maneuver, was that he was just hauling balls into that shuttle bay. But I mean, I don't know.
It was effective though. It took out the entire enemy crew.
They were all incapacitated. And then, you know, they're like, as soon as the shuttle was in there, they're like, just get us out of here. We don't care about the shields. And they took off. The Enterprise did. Klingons missed. And so that's basically how that went. So anyway, yeah, the entire group of Sybok's minions are incapacitated at this point. And, and
all the Enterprise people.
Right. Yeah, Kirk and Sybok are the only ones that have any sort of consciousness at all. And so they kind of wrestle over the gun a little bit, and Sybok wins, and he's like, I'll take you to the bridge. And then they get outside the shuttle, and Kirk's like,
whoa, no, you don't. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
What?
So Kirk and Sybok wrestle.
No, that was outside the shuttle, yeah, that they throw down.
Yeah, they throw down. Okay, you're right. So they throw down. Yeah. Did I jump?
Yeah, a little bit, but that's okay.
So they get into like
5 seconds.
Yeah, Kirk punches Sybok in the face, and they get to commence to wrestling. And Sybok is just spinning Kirk around. He's obviously way stronger than Kirk. And in one of the parts of the scene, he spins him around so fast, and he like slams him against the side of the shuttle, and you can see the wires holding Captain Kirk in the air.
I never noticed wires, I don't think, in anything I've ever watched. That's funny. I'll even watch like Superman 4 and I won't be paying attention to the wires, but I'm sure that they were there.
I will show you, friend. Next time we're together, I will show you.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm anxious to see that. But yeah, he's throwing him around like a rag doll, and Sybok loses the gun, and Spock picks it up, who's now regained consciousness. And Kirk's like, shoot him! But Spock won't do it. And Sybok's like, come on, he's like, shoot me. And basically Sybok takes the gun away because Spock won't shoot him. And he's like, all right, well, are you going to join me or not? And he's like, I'm not going to join you. And so he's like, all right, well, you and Bones and Kirk all go to the brig. And so that's where they head. And what happens after that?
Well, Kirk is like, Spock, why the fuck did you not shoot Sybok?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Sybok's like,
Kirk is pissed.
Yeah, he's like, I could not kill him. He is my brother. Dun dun dun! Shocker.
Right. Which they never reference. I was just going to say, in any other Star Trek, they never reference Spock's brother again, ever. But
yeah, and Kirk was like, I know you don't have a brother. And Spock was like, you're right. He's my half-brother.
Dun dun dun! A double twist. That's some Shyamalan shit right there, man.
Jesus Christ.
So it turns out that I guess Spock's dad had married this Vulcan princess, and she had died before Spock was ever thought of, and he had this child, Sybok, and then after she died, he went and married Spock's mom, and they had another kid, and so technically it's Spock's half-brother. And so Sybok, anyway, makes it to the bridge, and Sulu's like, I'm laying in a new course. And they're like, where are you going? Is what Chekhov asks. And he's like, that's whenever Sybok talks to him and takes his pain away, quote unquote, so that therefore, like, Chekhov's now joining with him. It really doesn't take very long to brainwash any of these people, do you think, Mike?
No, it's about, I don't know, 3.5 seconds.
Yeah. All these people that are supposed to be, like, loyal to Kirk, they've served with them for, what, like 15 years? They're just gonna flip-flop like it's men against Kirk in this thing. Another ego stroke by Shatner.
By the way, this dude is a misogynist to the extreme. Sybok is. Everything he talks about is men.
Men, yeah. I didn't.
He doesn't mention a woman one time in the movie. He says all men have pain.
Yeah.
That are like deep inside of them. Later on, he talks about men were destined. Men have always searched for men. He never one time mentions like people or anything else. Just men. So he's pretty misogynist in my opinion.
Well, it's funny because we'll find out later that he's going on this conquest in reference to God. And I guess kind of my thing is, because I never noticed it, is because a lot of times whenever like looking at like biblical theology and stuff like that, there's constant references to men, you know, but very seldom are women ever brought into it. I think is whenever like biblically they say man, they're talking about like mankind. But yeah, no, he never talks about woman or you know, ladies or anything like that. It's all men. He goes through and what is it? Oh, then we cut to the brig where Kirk is trying to break out, and you find out that they had actually tested the new brig on Spock, and he wasn't able to escape. So he's pretty sure that Kirk's not going to be able to either. And then we find out that
this piece of shit Enterprise is falling apart left and right, but they have a brand new, inescapable brig.
Right. The funny thing about it too is that then we cut to where Sulu tells Sybok that it's going to be 6.7 hours to their destination at Warp 7. Now, Mike, I did a little bit of research because I'm not an astronomer at all. Do you know how far away the center of the galaxy is from Earth?
No.
Okay. To give you an idea, it's 30,000 light years. So if we were traveling at the speed of light, it would take us 30,000 years to get there, you know. Now, we know exponentially
Sounds
speaking,
pretty far.
It is pretty far. We know exponentially that, like, starships in Star Trek can travel, you know, whenever you get into, like, warp factor 2 and warp factor 6 and 7 and all that, that you're going, you know, multiple times the speed of light. But I do think it's funny because, you know, that to go 30,000 light years in 6 hours, this is not gonna happen, bro. In fact, in Star Trek, there was a show, Star Trek Voyager. They were 70,000 light years from home, and they said that at their maximum speed, it would take them 75 years to get there. But by this logic, as fast as the Enterprise is traveling to the center of the galaxy, they could have made it there in a day if they stopped for lunch, you know. So there's a major plot hole there. But
I can't believe they would make such an error.
It's a huge error. Is that sarcasm? I believe it. It's horrible writing. Originally, I guess Shatner was talking about going to the center of the universe, and the producers finally stopped. They're like, "That's just too dumb, dude. We can't do that." Like,
Jesus Christ.
Right. So then we jump back to. He makes an announcement to the ship that they're going to Shakari, which is like Vulcan heaven, basically. And then Spock's like, I can't believe he's trying to go to Shakari. It's across the Great Barrier. And all this other crap. And so then, not too long afterward, they start hearing a tapping on the walls. It turns out Scotty's trying to use Morse code to tell him to stand back because he's about to break them out of their cell. So anyway, right after that is whenever Sybok discovers that they've escaped. And this is another part of the movie coming up here that I don't think held up very well, because right after that, they're talking to Scotty, and he's telling them they have to go up this turboshaft and all this other crap to get up to this transmitter where they can send a distress call, tell them that the ship's been hijacked. And so then Scotty's like, I know this ship like the back of my hand, and bumps his head and falls on the ground.
What the fuck?
It's just so cheesy, dude. I was waiting for, you know, some music, you know, or something like that, but
it made a dong sound, like dong.
Right. Yeah, it was bad. Like if you hit somebody with a pan or something, you know.
And I don't know about you, but I've whacked my head a few times, and I've never been knocked out cold by bumping my head.
I think I might have come. I've seen stars a couple times. Like bad, but.
Yeah, I mean, I've hit my head pretty hard, but I've never been just knocked out flat on the ground cold.
Yeah. No, I don't think I ever have. I've been, like, due to no oxygen passed out, but no, not from hitting my head ever. That's crazy. I didn't even think about that, but you see it all the time in movies, you know. So, I don't know.
Yep. Must be true.
They make it to this turbo shaft, and they start climbing up this ladder, and you see Spock turn around, and he leaves. And so they keep climbing, and then you see Spock descend from up above with his stupid gravity boots. And so here's what I think is funny about that, because he came from above, which means that he went and got his boots and then went up to a higher level and crossed over into this turbo shaft so he could descend upon them. I guess that's how that worked. Otherwise, I would have seen him shoot up the turbo shaft behind him while they're climbing a ladder. So it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if you're... That's the part that fucked with you in this scene?
Well, there's some other bullshit in there, too. Don't get me wrong.
Like how Bones and Kirk both climb aboard his boots and don't even really have to hold on.
No, they don't. Well, another thing about it, too, is that, like, in like Star Trek, like a starship, they call them decks, but that's like a floor of a building, basically, you know. And whenever they launch up, some of these decks that they go past are like Deck 86 and all this stuff. Dude, they're in like a skyscraper in space. If that's the case, man. Whenever they finally launch upward.
I like how they really showed us how fast they're traveling, because like every second they're cutting back and forth to them, like flying up the shaft, and it's like Deck 32, Deck 56, Deck 74. Like, dang, they're flying.
Yeah, they are. But there are way too many decks in that turbo shaft for the Enterprise. I'm just saying.
And it's a really good thing that the anti-gravity boots had booster rockets on it as well.
Yeah, the booster rockets have nothing to do with anti-gravity, you would think.
Well, they were too heavy for just the anti-gravity device alone.
I guess that must be, he even says,
and you can carry your buddy as long as he puts one foot on top of your foot. and just
And
put
barely
his arm
holds on.
around you. Yeah,
Right.
and you can hold him up, no problem.
Yeah. Yep. He's good to go.
And then he goes too far.
Yeah. He overshot a deck or two, which is kind of a funny thing.
What the fuck?
And so anyway, they find Scotty. He's passed out on the floor still from all this crap. And they send a mess. They finally get to that transmitter, and they send a message, which is intercepted by the Klingons, basically talking about where they're headed to, and the ship has been taken over and all this other crap. And so finally, the Klingons know where they're going, and so they take off to go intercept him once again. Right after that is where we get to Sybok finds them in the room where they're doing the transmitting, and says that where they're going, it's possible to get there. And he starts going through all this stuff about how, warp speed would never be achieved, and humans were never going to break the sound barrier, and all this other stuff. So people constantly have been trashing on things that they thought were impossible, but as it turns out, were not. And so then he talks about how Shakari is heaven. Oh, and then we get to the part where he heals Bones' pain. Why don't you talk about that? Because I actually really like that scene.
Well, so Bones has a flashback. Well, he goes to the moment where his father's deathly ill in a hospital bed. Yeah. And as we know, Bones is the doctor in the ship, so he's a doctor. Mm-hmm. They appear to be in New York City or something.
Right. Or at least there's a poster of New York City in the window.
Yeah, something.
Right. It looked like crap, but yeah.
He talks to his dad. His dad is really ill, and he's a doctor, and he's doing his best to take care of his dad, but his dad's just in my pain. So without having to beg too much, that's what Bones does. He ends his dad's pain. And then you find out why he's really pissed off about his dad's death was because they discovered a cure for whatever illness his dad had, just shortly after that event.
Right. I actually like that scene. I think that it's one of those rare gems in this turd sandwich movie that, the whole thing where he's like, well, what are you going to do to save him? And Bones is like, well, I'm a doctor. He's like, but I'm also his son, which I thought was actually kind of a neat little moment. But, yeah, it was kind of poignant. I mean, at this point, when you're watching this, you're kind of looking for stuff to appreciate too, So,
I mean, if you're watching a movie where the message of the movie is not clear at all, you can find a little something in there. I mean, I guess that's worth something.
Well, I guess so, but it doesn't really tie into any other sort of overarching message in a movie. I don't know that there is a message really to this madness, man. They're just doing stuff.
And then we go into Spock's backstory. Yeah. The one we're waiting to see about the pain. And he's like, I had no pain. They're like, are you sure? And it shows when he was born. His dad says, so human. That's right. Spock's big pain.
Well, so his dad never accepted him because he's half human, half Vulcan. So, but that's already kind of a horse that's been beat to death in other Star Trek stuff. So it's nothing new information-wise.
And that's never made any sense to me at all. He hooked up with the human chick.
Right.
That would be like me having a biracial child and then not accepting my child because of the other race.
Right. Ew, I don't like that. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. I think that Spock's dad, Sarek, was actually hoping that he would embrace his Vulcan side more so than his human side, and instead Spock has decided to try to balance the two out, which Sarek doesn't appreciate. I was just cracking up because you have these really technologically advanced Vulcans, which they establish in Star Trek that the Vulcans are further along technologically than the humans are. And yet, in the meantime, the births that they have is literally a woman squatting in a cave. I was like, good grief, get me out of here.
I'm pretty sure every woman dies after they give birth to a Vulcan child.
Oh, that has to happen. That looks riddled with infection, dude. Plus, that was a big-ass baby.
I don't. Do you ever see Spock's mom?
Oh yeah, yeah, she shows up.
Okay, I guess she did.
Yeah, she showed up in 4 actually. She's in that movie. Amanda is her name. So Kirk basically asks Sybok, he's like, "What have you done to my friends?" And Sybok says, "This is who they are. Didn't you know that?" And he's offering to take away Kirk's pain, and Kirk's like, "No, I think I'm good with my pain, bro." And he's basically talking to him, and he's like, "You want to take away?" He's like, "I need my pain." He's like, "So I made like a bad decision when I could have made a better decision." He's like, "That's part of what makes you who you are, you know." And so then they end up getting close to the Great Barrier, and freaking they decide that Sybok keeps them down in that observation area, and he goes back to the bridge, and this whole thing is so overblown. The Great Barrier. They're like, no ship's ever gone in there and come back, and no probes have ever come back or anything, and like they just fly through.
Right through.
Yeah, there's nothing hits them. They don't even get hit by lightning or anything. They're good.
No, it looks like the barrier is just like some gas.
Yeah. What it looked like to me.
Colored gas.
Right. I think that's probably a fair assessment. It kind of to me looked like if you have like a pan of water and put like some oil in it, and like you know how the oil like disperses the water out and all that other stuff because they don't mix. That's what the visual effects look like to me. Like they weren't convincing at all. But it's okay.
Or like a lava lamp with glitter in it.
Yeah, I could see that. Shoot, dude, we could make that special effect at my house.
All day.
All day. All day. For really cheap. We're talking
that
like
special
$8.
effects. That special effect goes on in my daughter's room every night because that's what she has for a nightlight.
That was pretty funny. Sybok actually had told him that he was receiving visions from God, from inside the Great Barrier, and that's whenever Kirk's finally convinced that this dude's like out of his mind. They start scanning the planet that they find in the middle of the Great Barrier, and Chekhov says that it's this power source unlike anything he's ever seen. And so then Kirk and crew just saunter up to the bridge, and he's like, "Can I have my ship back now?" And they're like, "Yeah." He's like, "How do you know I want to turn around?" And he's like, "I'm sure you want to see what's down there." And so it's Spock, Kirk, and Bones, and Sybok all head down to the planet in a shuttle because the transporter still isn't working. This thing is broke, dude.
Scotty sucks.
Yeah, he does. He does. I've seen him. They literally say he's a miracle worker in Star Trek, but he cannot do that at all, man.
Well, to be fair, the only tools he has are these like lit wands. Is the best way I can describe them. They look like those light souvenirs you get at the fair that like flash.
Yeah, I agree. He had one thing that looked like a wrench with a light bulb on the end of it. But like, I don't see how that's going to help you fix anything. Yeah, that's not good. They head back. They head down in the shuttle to the planet surface. Now, mind you, there's not really been that much plot going on, but we're in like the last 20 minutes of the movie. Really, you know, it seems like it's all fluff at this point. They head down in the shuttle, and on the way down, Spock says, "Oh, I'm not controlling the shuttle anymore. Something on the planet's controlling it now." And so anyway, the shuttle lands. Kirk goes for a phaser, and Sybok's like, "No, don't take the phaser with you," which is dumb beyond all belief. Even if Sybok felt that way, Kirk would still take a phaser with him. Guaranteed. Yeah,
and then Kirk was just like, "Yeah, we'll play it by your rules."
Right. That's so dumb. How about you play it by Starfleet rules, sir? That's going to be a little more effective. Anyway, they start walking around this planet for a good 3 or 4 minutes, I want to say. It goes on for a while.
A real thorough search.
Yeah, it is. And I like how, too, whenever they land, you see this mountain off in the distance, and there's this dirt road going up the mountain. It's so funny. Dirt roads in heaven, man. But I will say, though, that this is where Jerry Goldsmith's musical score really starts to take off. And, like, he has this whole piece of music that goes on the entire time that they're walking around. And it's glorious to listen to. It's really good stuff.
I'm glad there was something there, because whatever I was watching, I was not paying attention. I was in disbelief. Like, the fact that they just went through this barrier, and now they're on the planet in the center of the galaxy, and am I supposed to think this is heaven? I'm confused as fuck. This planet looks a lot like the planet they started on. Like, there's so many things, like, I'm just confused at this point.
Dude, so heaven looks like a piece of shit in this movie. Like, it doesn't even look like you could grow potatoes there. It's all rocks and sand and shit, you know?
There's no life on this planet.
No, nothing going on, except whoever made that road, but that's it. Anyway, the crew of the Enterprise is so, like, transfixed on watching them walk around aimlessly that they fail to realize that the Klingons have finally, they're, like, getting in their vicinity. Scotty's trying to fix a stupid transporter still, and they finally get to the spot, and finally Sybok's like, okay, here's good, and he's like, we have traveled far, and in so doing, like, Spock basically goes up to him, because he looks disappointed, like, what's going on? And so Spock finally is like, Sybok, maybe, and then, like, all of a sudden, like, the ground starts shaking, and the sky darkens. And these big, what did I call them on here? Oh, the Great Rock Rib Cage. These, like, big rocks start jutting from the ground, and it looks like a giant rib cage around them, basically.
Yeah, it looks exactly like a rib cage, you're right. And, like, they're just pillars, they're just rock pillars that look like ribs. Right.
There's this, they walk to one end of it, and there seems to be this energy being that starts to manifest in the middle of this rib cage. And, so anyway, this thing, like, starts talking to him and claims to be God. And it's this giant blue head that, looks like it's made out of lightning.
So we meet God.
Yeah, effectively. Or so
This is my what the fuck am I watching moment. Like, the whole time in the movie, I'm thinking, like, this movie sucks. The special effects are terrible. That actor can't deliver lines to save their life. What the fuck? We meet God? Like, I was stunned.
That's the final frontier. Like, that's literally the highest that you can go in Star Trek, is meeting God. You know? But apparently, so I guess Shatner had said, and this is kind of where I was talking about earlier, is that I guess there was some special effects that he wanted to do, and, like, instead they actually have, like, met the devil, and, like, these giant rock creatures come out and, like, start going after him and all this crap. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, even with better special effects, would it really have made the movie that much better? In which I'd have to say no. I don't think so. It's, you know, that
was the best effect in the movie.
Oh, the blue head.
Yeah, the many faces, one voice thing. That was the best effect in the whole movie.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
I mean, it still sucked, but it.
Oh yeah. I'll go into my opinion on it later, but yeah, it's not a good movie. Anyway, so anyway, God's like, oh, so you guys have gone a long way to try to come and find me. He's like, how'd you guys make it here after all? And they're like, with the ship. And so anyway, freaking God starts asking a lot of questions about this ship. You know, he seems overly interested. And finally, Kirk's like, wait, just a minute. He's like, because he's talking about, like, I'm gonna go out and that'll be like my flagship and my chariot and all this other stuff. And Kirk's like, what does God need with the starship? Is exactly what he asked. And so anyway, he's like, oh, you don't believe me, you're a doubter. And he, like, zaps the shit out of Kirk. And that's whenever Spock's
kinda just burns his chest a little bit, like,
throws him back a ways. Yeah,
like, for God, lightning bolts coming out the eyes, like, it wasn't very impressive.
No, it wasn't. Like, God could vaporize you. You would think, you know. Like,
it was so not impressive that Spock was even like, you didn't answer his question, bro.
Spock's not intimidated at all by this dude. Which is even less intimidating if you notice the harness that was behind Shatner, like yanking him backwards. That I did notice. So anyway, Spock asked the same question, and so it's really funny. He said, "Who is this creature?" And Kirk's like, "Don't you know who I am? Aren't you God?" Which is really funny too. They fly to the center of the galaxy and start fucking with this dude. But what happens after that? Oh, God reveals that he's full of shit, and he's like, "You think I'm God? You're really dumb." And basically, tells him like, "I've just been like this being that's been prisoned on this planet, and I've been trying to get the fuck out of here, but nobody's been able to make it through. So now I'm gonna take your ship and bounce out." And that's whenever Sybok's like, "Man, I got suckered into this whole thing," and he's like, "I'm gonna go and make a diversion while you guys try to escape from this fucking guy." And so he goes up there and he tries to heal God's pain, basically, and he like melds with this dude, and that's when you see Kirk has ace up his sleeve, and he decides that he's gonna have the ship fire a photon torpedo like right where they're at, which is a photon torpedo is supposed to be like just shy of like a nuclear bomb. There ain't no running away from that thing, man.
Dude, it didn't even throw any dust in the air. It didn't launch a single rock when it hit the planet. Nothing.
No, it's fine.
They literally jumped over and hid behind a rock, and nothing.
Nothing happened. They're good. It's fine. Yeah, this thing's supposed to be like a
punched a
Moab.
hole in the planet.
Yeah, it did. So the Klingons are now cloaked. Once again, nobody's paying attention to them. But they're like right on the Enterprise. They're cloaked. They're getting ready to attack or whatever. And so Kirk, Spock, and Bones get back to the shuttle, and it doesn't work. And they get on the phone with Scotty, and he's like, "I can only get two of you guys up here right now." And so they beam up Spock and Bones, which is, from a tactical standpoint, a really dumb decision. But like in a situation like that, do you want a captain? Would you think that would be more important, or like a science officer, would you say, Mike?
Well, it was Kirk's call. He's like,
was.
"I can only pull two of you up right now." He's like, "Okay, take Bones and Spock right now." And they were gone instantly.
But it was a bad call, though, I would say.
Tactically, not a great decision, but
No.
morally, I guess, it was alright.
It's whatever. So anyway, the Klingons, as soon as they beam up, the Klingons attack, and they fire, I guess, a photon torpedo at the Enterprise. You would think that there would be some sort of like proximity alert or something like that, saying, "Hey, we got Klingons," right? Even if nobody's paying attention, there'd be some kind of sensor or something that would say, "Hey, something's going on out here." But I guess that doesn't exist in Star Trek.
Well, the rocket that the Klingon shot just hits the transporter that Spock or that Scotty just fixed.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even realize, but yeah, that's just bad luck. If I was him, I'd be so pissed off. You spent this entire movie fixing that thing, and the Klingons take it down right after it's working again. So anyway, the Klingon captain, he hops on a wire with the Enterprise, and he says, "If you guys throw up your shields or like load your weapons, I'm gonna blow you out of the sky." And he's like, "I really want Captain Kirk." And he's like, "Well, he's down on the planet, and so I don't know what else you can do about him." And so anyway, Spock goes up and talks to that General Cord guy, and he's like, "Hey, you need to do something about this little situation that's going down with you and your boy." And so anyway, we cut back to the planet, and Kirk's running around and trying to get away from this god creature that's following him, and all of a sudden the Klingon bird of prey shows up, blasts him to Kingdom Come, and the Klingon bird of prey beams up Kirk. And what happens after that, Mike?
I don't fucking know. Dude,
You weren't even
at this
paying
point,
attention.
I'm like trying to figure out what Kirk is now on a Klingon ship, and the general from the Klingons is like, "Tell him you're sorry, motherfucker." And then the captain of the Klingon ship was like, "I apologize."
It's so funny. That was the most anticlimactic ending to anything I've ever seen, I'm pretty sure. It's like they just ran out of movies, so they're like, fuck it.
At this point, my skin is just tingling with anger for you.
I love it. I'm so I can't believe it. That's so great. Anyway, so Claw apologizes. You find out that Spock's actually the one that took the shot and killed that stupid supposed notional god creature.
And his brother.
And, yeah, and his brother. I think that the creature had already kind of taken care of that. But, Kirk says, I thought I was going to die. And Spock says, not possible. He said, you were never alone. So, that is what it is. They go back, have some drinks with the Klingons. And I guess Bones and Spock are thinking cosmically about whether or not there is a god. And Spock says, I lost a brother today. And Kirk said, I lost a brother once. I'm lucky I got him back. And he's talking about whenever Spock died. And then they brought him back in the movie series. And the movie bookends with them singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat around a campfire. Oh, it's so funny.
It's not fucking funny.
The fact that you don't think it's funny makes it funnier. Oh, God. So what did you think of Star Trek V, Mike?
Okay, so I really thought, pretty hard and deep about this after I wrapped up watching this film last night. And I'm going over my notes back and forth. And you might be surprised, but I actually think this movie is a big steaming pile of dog shit.
Really? That surprises me. I thought you would have enjoyed it.
Dude, I'm not kidding. One of the worst movies I've ever sat through.
Really?
Like, I made myself sit through just so it wouldn't be an hour and a half of you just talking about this movie.
Which it almost was anyway. Because you had nothing to add to it at all.
I still kind of don't.
So it's funny because I kind of picked this movie like I wanted to originally do a movie that wasn't it's not considered a good movie, because I could sit here and gush over, Silence of the Lambs for 2 hours, 6 hours, whatever. But I wanted to do a movie that was kind of outside of the box, and I like Star Trek, and I wanted to also, like, if we sat down and watched Star Trek 1, you absolutely would not have stayed awake. And on top of that, if we pick like 2, 3, or 4, then like those movies are actually really tightly knit together in that they make kind of their own little trilogy. This movie kind of does its one shot off by itself, But it being one of the worst you've ever seen, I don't know about that, man.
100%.
Oh man, I've seen some real awful. What's the worst movie you think you've ever seen?
Star Trek V.
Really? That bad?
Yes. I don't sit through movies that are terrible.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's a fair assessment. I think the worst one I've ever seen, they made a sequel back in the 90s to Lawnmower Man. It was
Didn't watch that.
Yeah, I've watched that stinking pile of shit, man. It was really, really bad, bro. Needless to say, this movie did not do the numbers that they were hoping for at the box office. In fact, a lot of people thought that this was going to be the end of the Star Trek franchise as they knew it. It wasn't until later on that there was a new head of Paramount that came in, and he actually greenlit a 6th film, which kind of redeemed Star Trek after this debacle. But I'm gonna be for real with you, there's some awful stuff in here, but I think that there's certain things, I think the score for the film kind of ties it together tonally. I really like the scene with where Spock talks about all the neutral zone violations, and I like the bit with McCoy's dad, and there's some good stuff in here. It's definitely not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I could see why you would say that though. So
well, I'm not the Trek fanboy you are.
That's true.
I will say that the J.J. Abrams series of movies that have come out are badass.
Are they better than this though?
Yeah.
Slightly.
They're really good. That first
Yeah.
JJ one was really, really, really good.
Yeah, I like that movie.
So, I really don't have a whole lot to say. You know, I think I've said pretty much what I need to say about this film at this point.
So you liked it?
No.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah,
And even though you gave me a copy that didn't have subtitles for the Klingon scenes, I'm really glad I didn't pay $2.99 to rent this on Amazon.
I figured as much, and that's kind of why I did it. You'll pay to watch a good movie, but yeah.
And now that I think back at it, I think the scenes with the Klingons are really good without subtitles.
Yeah.
You want to hear an interesting story?
What's that?
So this is my Star Trek history, okay?
Yeah.
If you go into Universal Studios, at least when I was a child, they did this. If you went to Universal Studios, you would stand in line and you would watch a live-action Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can picture that, right?
Yes.
So while you're standing on a line, these like assistant producers, I don't know, they're pretty young. They're just park employees, really. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're like 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids going around they're interviewing people standing in line. And they ask people like, would you like to be in this? All right. So the ham I was like, yeah, I want to be in it. So I get to be in this live action Star Trek film. My parents still have it on VHS. But they make me a dog for Klingons. So I am the Klingon like pet dog. And I'm in a hole in the ground, like up to my waist, and then I have this silicone foam suit on where you can't see anything that resembles me. I'm in a dog costume, and in one of the scenes, the Klingon commander gets pissed off and like rips the arm off of his like lieutenant or whatever, and throws it to the dog, which is me, and my part is to pick up this foam arm and like pretend like I'm eating it. In this film,
that would be worth finding a VCR to watch.
And at the end of, I'll pick it up and we'll watch it together sometime. But
I'd
at the end, my name is even in the credits.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's
so it's
pretty cool. Yeah,
but
I would love to see that.
That was way more fun than watching this movie.
Oh, it was way shorter too. So
yeah, a lot less painful.
Right. That's all I got. I mean, I've got way more experience with Star Trek. I've seen like every episode of every show, over 700 hours worth of Star Trek stuff. So that's my experience.
In the recording of this podcast, I do want to thank you because I know you could have totally nerded out on this film and gave me all kinds of like backstories and references and stuff that I don't think we really added to the casual listener or someone who's not even familiar with this film because let's be honest, if we are fortunate enough to have some people listen to this episode, most of them had no idea this movie even came out.
That's what I was just about to say. Like, I don't think there's any listeners going to be listening on Star Trek 5. But I'll take that.
We actually did make iTunes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, we are up on iTunes.
We did make it on iTunes. We went active on iTunes, so I'm super excited about that.
Yep.
You want to know what we're going to watch next weekend?
Dude, I would love to hear it.
So, I just have a question for you, okay? And then maybe we can figure it out from there.
Yes.
If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call?
I would call the Ghostbusters from the remake that they just did not long ago.
No, we're going to do the original Ghostbusters.
Yes, Ghostbusters is awesome. I love Ghostbusters. It's ironic because this came out the same year as Ghostbusters 2, but I didn't like that one as much, so.
No, we're going to do the OG original Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We're still on that long string of #1 weeks by Titanic, so I get a chance to pick another one, and I thought Ghostbusters sounded like fun.
Oh, yeah, it's classic. Did you ever watch the real Ghostbusters cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did, but.
I watched it. It wasn't as good as the movies.
Yeah. What is this? Bill Murray and all those guys. I don't know. I didn't look anybody up, but Ramus, whatever his name was. I don't know, man. I'm feeling out of it today, but yeah, it's Ghostbusters good. I'm excited about that.
Cool. Well, I look forward to talking to you next week about Ghostbusters, brother.
Most definitely. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Be sure to look us up on Facebook. You can download this on iTunes, or you can look us up on YouTube for our full videos. You can also email us at cheesymovie@yahoo.com if you have anything you want to add, contribute, whatever. But that is it for me.
That's all for me, brother.
All right, be sure to join us for Ghostbusters next week. See you later.
I'll be back.